Today, I'll try and give you a glimpse of what happens when an analyst has a bunch of numbers looking for their salvation to this analyst and has to be depicted in a visualization. So I just want to use a sample that I have to give you a glimpse of what goes on. So what I'm giving you today was actually an assignment from one of my modules from my master's program. And we are required to use Tableau, which is a data visualization tool to visualize a given data set. Although I can't give a detailed architecture of Tableau in this particular video, I just want to give you an overview of what we were required to do. So when you get into Tableau, there are usually three kinds of tabs that you will see at the lowermost border. You know how you open an Excel file and you can have sheet 1, sheet 2, sheet 3, and the whole Excel file, you call it a workbook. So when you come into Tableau, it happens that way. Within the whole Tableau file, you call it a Tableau workbook. Now within that Tableau workbook, you have what is called a worksheet. Then worksheets, you can combine multiple worksheets into a dashboard, and then you can combine multiple dashboards or a dashboard and worksheet into what we call story. In our assignment, we were not required to produce a story. So even if you needed to tell a story of what you found from your insight, we are only required to do one and only one dashboard. And this can also happen in some real life scenarios where the client might just need you to produce only a singular dashboard, giving key insights of what is needed. The data that was given to us, just like I told you, the link is in the description section. And the data was about COVID-19 admission rates and hospitalization rate in 25 European countries. So that was just the only thing that was told to us in class. The rest of the information you have to get about the data, it's on you. And the truth is, for every data project, before you can make sense of anything out of that analysis, you have to understand the data itself. You have to understand what we call the fields. You have to understand what the fields are. Usually the column, if you're talking about a spreadsheet kind of, a table kind of data. They are just different kinds of data, but I'm trying to use the most simple form. You have to understand what each column in the most simple form means. That way you can make proper interpretation of whatever it is you're doing. Sometimes clients bring the full details of the data set they've given to you. Other times you have to do the digging yourself. You have to ask them and probably even have to go through the internet to understand the data sets more. In my own case, in this particular assignment, I had to do the digging. So I went in the website. From the same link where we got the data, there was something called a data dictionary. Now, this data dictionary can be called different things by different people. For example, in my company, we tend to call it data codebook, especially when we generate it ourselves from the data set. And some of my clients in my company would have experienced me asking them, I need to get because I work more with research data. So sometimes they get in those things. I say, I need to see your proposal. I need to see your questionnaire. I need to see how you collected this data and something like that. That way I can get to know the data, the information about the data, what we call the metadata, and we can understand the data better. For example, in this particular case, it told me that the impact of COVID in these 25 countries were measured using 4 particular metrics. Then it also told me that the sources of this data, the figures in the data set, that the sources differ. And it also went further to say, be wary, be careful of whatever interpretation you made out of this, because these measurements are quite dependent on the policy of each country. It's so also dependent on the practices of each country, because while one country might be doing frequent COVID-19 testing, another country might not be doing that. When I saw that data set and the numbers around, the first thing that was going through my head was, how can I visualize this data to make sense to anybody that knows absolutely nothing about data? So what I did was to check the metrics. Since I found out that there are different measuring metrics, I said, okay, let me see the metrics each of these countries used in measuring their own. So I found out that while some countries used the 4 metrics, none of the countries, none of the metrics was used in all the countries. So what I did again, regardless of that, I said, I need to just see for each of these metrics, what is the distribution like? Since I've seen that no metric has it all right, let me see, okay, for each metric, which of the countries have the top figures? In this case, it looked like I was doing an inter-country comparison, but there was no decision to be made out of it. It was just see what it is. Don't make a decision out of it. And that's why you're seeing it as, a hierarchical bar chart. So when I was done with that shallow depiction of what is happening according to each country, I now went into in-depth visualization of each metric. So I used different types of charts to now visualize what has, in this case, it was kind of trend, not pattern that I was checking. So I was checking the trend of each metric over a given period of time. To make it easy for visualization, one of the first things I did was to create 4 new columns representing each metric. Because when you go to the data set, what you'll be seeing is the single column housing all the metrics. And for each of these things, I had to also make sure that I filtered it down by country. And another thing that is quite important in visualization, especially when it comes to dashboards, is the management of space. So when you have a lot of information to display in a single dashboard, like in our own case, you'll be struggling with how to present this so that it's still readable and still understandable. Again, you will need some mathematical knowledge because you will have to decide what information the charts are representing. Should it represent just a count, a frequency, an average, sum of total, and all those things? And your decision should be justified for why you choose each one. For example, when I decided to do what looks like a cumulative graph, it was like a running total. So I could see when there is a steep increase and when there is just a stagnant growth. A stagnant growth means we are no longer getting as much increase in the admission rates compared to the steep increase. I just wanted to see that trend. So when I was happy with the running total in the cumulative chart, and then in the area chart, and then the mean in the bar chart, still dual axis, I said this is what I wanted. So when I was putting it on the dashboard, I had to put in what we call filters, because it helps to create the interactivity where you can say, I just want to see this country alone, and it gives you that country. I just want to see this year alone, and it gives you what was happening around that year. So when you're done generating the charts in your separate worksheets, creating the dashboard is another thing that tests your ability to be creative, and it tests a bit of your graphic designing knowledge. You don't have to be a graphic designer to visualize dashboards. I mean, you just need to know some basic rules because it brings out the aesthetics. So some of the things I consider to, boost the aesthetics of my visualization is what I'm going to be discussing now. And one of those things is what we call tiled and floated containers. So in Tableau, just like in Power BI, like I already said, dashboards are a combination of charts, multiple charts and graphs, and each of those charts or graphs or texts or images or anything that we put onto the dashboard can just be called a container. So in Tableau, you can put them what we say tiled containers. So when you put it, the shape of the whole dashboard is automatically determined because it is a tiled container. So it determines how it appears. But if it's a floating one, you determine the shape, the size, the height and width of that particular container. So you have more control over it. So in my own case, for example, the COVID-19 icons you'll be seeing on this dashboard, we are actually placed in as floating containers, whereas some of these things like this place now is actually a tiled container. So it fitted in with this title and with this date section. All I had to now do was to place this COVID-19 as a floating container on top of that one that was fitted there, and that is how it works out that way sometimes. Then the next thing that I also considered was consistent font choices, consistent color scheme, which is quite important. I mean, some people who are new to the game of designing, be it in the case of data analysis, dashboard designing, or general designing, even on PowerPoint designing, they don't know that less is more. So they want to put everything, see that I can do all of this in one go. And it becomes so distracting. So if you look in my own design, you see that my titles, my titles of each container here, and even the subtitles, they have consistent feels and they didn't bring distraction to the viewer. And the same thing is for the color. So each of those containers, the background color are literally the same except the one that was yellow, because I wanted to use it to point out to the viewers to read that, which is an important notice. Then another beautiful thing I did was what is called instructional titles. So some analysts may be guilty of this one without even knowing. So instructional title is when your viewer is seeing this, they may not know what to do with the visualization. You're now telling them, do this, do that, and this is what this place means. I'll give you an example with what I know, with what I did here. So have an example like here. I said average indicator values, see below. Now you're telling this person to look through. And in some of those cases, I said, select an indicator using the filter button above. So I'm guiding the viewer on what to do. I said, hover to see actual value. So when I hover around this, you see actual value. And then I say, click each bar to see more trends about the country and to see the web link to learn more about the country. So when this person now knows that, oh, I can actually click this bar and I can see more things. Then the next thing I also did was to, have a white space. Good designers would always tell you to give some room, some white space in your design, so you don't have to pack in everything everywhere. You give your design breathing space, and that way the eyes can roam through the content of each dashboard that you're giving out. Then I also used what is called dashboard actions to improve my dashboard. So what I have here is a classical example of what we call interactive dashboards. Interactive dashboards are dashboard where the user, the viewer, or your audience can click something and the appearance or the view they are seeing changes. So for example, I can say I'm changing this now from daily hospital occupancy to weekly new hospital admission rates. You see a lot of things changes, and I can change country and say please get me to Germany, and it gives me the information for Germany. Now I know that Germany does not have hospitalization at ICU occupancy, daily hospitalization at ICU occupancy values, but I can see that they have admission rates here. Then I can get it back to all. So you see now what I'm viewing at every given stage changes because of my interaction with the dashboard. If it was a static dashboard, what I will view will be the same. So to be able to achieve that thing, I have to use dashboard actions. I have to think of filter. I have to use hover. So I needed to write some more things to pass message about this dashboard, but because I was working with one dashboard, I had no space to start writing so many. So I had to put them in such a way that when the user hovers across my dashboard, you can read more. Now this is a classical example under where I have disclaimer. And you remember when I talked about instructional titles, so you can see disclaimer and I said hover to read. So this is me calling in the user to take action, and when the person hovers, you see a long thing that I've written there, which is the hover. Now the other thing that also helped me was dashboard size. So it's always great to know your audience and where is the primary place you'll be presenting this dashboard. In my case, I already knew I was going to be doing a PowerPoint presentation, so it made sense for me to use an orientation that fits in PowerPoint, the regular PowerPoint view, which is the landscape 16:9. So you have to always think of this when you design a dashboard. When I now wanted to republish this on Tableau Public, like you will see the link down there you're seeing now, I had to resize it to regular desktop view and replace some things. So always think, like, it's another intelligent thing to think, where will your audience be interacting and working with this dashboard, because it makes it easier for the user to interact and grasp what they are viewing. Overall, if you followed this video up to this point, I just want to say thank you very much, because I know it's not easy to follow the nitty-gritty of everything that I've been talking about here. And also I want to say welcome to my world, because these are things we do on a daily basis. And I just want to let you know that what I've described so far to this point is only a fraction, very minute fraction of what goes on in the real world of data analysis and what went in producing just this piece alone. In this case, there was no in-depth statistical test performed, so I never talked about things like chi-square, t-test, ANOVA, McNemar, and Man Whitney and the rest, regression. No, I didn't do them here. So that's even a different whole room of analysis. This was just about visualizations. We didn't even talk about qualitative data, thematic analysis, and all those things. But again, you see, all these things are data analysis, and it gives you the understanding that what happens in analysis is quite interesting. I almost forgot to let you know, I published this dashboard on Tableau Public. The link is down there. You can also see it on my blog, my website. So if you want to interact with it and understand what I'm talking about, interactive data where you get to feel what changes when you click the years, the countries, and the metrics and the rest, feel free to use the link and let me know what you think. Please subscribe to my channel, as I'll be bringing in more things about what happens in health system, what happens in health informatics, health data science world. And if you're really interested in non-clinical part of healthcare system, I'll be doing more of those talks here, and please subscribe to my channel. Until we see you again, bye bye and have a nice time.